So Misophonia Care Day is funded through generous philanthropic support by anonymous families to our Duke Center and by the REAM Foundation, an organization working with the Milken Institute Center for Strategic Philanthropy on grant programming for misophonia. Together, the REAM Foundation and Milken Institute have partnered with Stellate Communications on helping us use social media to market and raise awareness for today's event. In addition, many leaders in misophonia advocacy worldwide have been extremely valuable partners in planning today's event. These people include Adil Ahmad, who's the founder of the Misophonia podcast, Kashara Bass, who is the founder and director of Hear Our Misophonia, Andrea Davis, the founder of Misomatch.com and Misotech.com, Dr. Marcia Johnson, the founder and president of the Misophonia Association, Dr. Mario Campanino, the founder and president of the Italian Misophonia Association, Dr. Mary Petrie, who is a family member of someone with misophonia and who's currently authoring a book on this topic, and Dr. Sylvie Raver of the Milken Institute Center for Strategic Philanthropy. So to all of you who have been involved in planning today's event, all of you as leaders in advocacy, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for helping make today be what it will be. Misophonia Care Day is envisioned as a way to translate recent discoveries in the science of misophonia to the public around the world for free, all in a way that is practical and inspires hope. CARE stands for Conversations About Research with Everyone, and that is simply the idea here. The idea we have is that scientists share their research, you all ask questions, and throughout the day, we get to have an extended conversation together about the science of misophonia. The science of misophonia is quickly growing. This is an incredibly exciting time to be involved in this world. If you care about understanding what misophonia is from the perspective of a scientific framework, we think today should be really, really exciting for you. In the past 2 years, there have been more scientific studies published about misophonia than all previous years combined. You think about that. Misophonia was labeled in the early 2000s by Dr. Jastroboff, and here we are 20-something years later, and we have, in the past 2 years, more scientific research than all those other years combined. Pretty exciting time. We're not going to define misophonia in great detail up front here. We are going to refer you to the recent consensus definition of misophonia as a way for us to recommend to you how to consistently define misophonia. This paper is publicly available. It's free. You can go into any search engine and you can type in consensus definition misophonia, and you will find it very quickly. And this will provide great detail about what an expert panel of scientists and clinicians were able to come to in reviewing the literature on misophonia and defining what it is. Important to note, though, that this is for now the definition of misophonia. If you believe in science as a way to help advance knowledge, you really have to kind of take a step back and think, now we have a definition of misophonia driven by expert consensus, but over time, science should tell us how we might want to refine or change or modify in any way that definition. The speakers for today were selected by our planning team among a much larger group of scientists. We selected these speakers based on their recently published work that we believe is very important. It's not to say there aren't other important studies that are occurring. There are many researchers now all across the world studying misophonia. Again, it's a very exciting time for all of this. Today, you're going to hear from scientists around the world. They span disciplines across areas like neuroscience, psychology, audiology, genetics, and more. You're going to hear talks about kids and adults, about the brain, about genes, about treatments, about all sorts of health conditions that may or may not be related to misophonia. The presentations are really going to focus on two core themes. First, what is misophonia? what do we see it as scientifically? What are its features? What are its correlates? What are its possible causes? How do we make sense of what in the world it might be? And second, what can we do to help people with misophonia? What treatments might be possible? What treatments might be developed over time? How do we help people and their loved ones? Today, you're going to hear presentations for about 15 minutes and then 15 minutes of question and answer sessions. We're going to try to stay on time as best as possible. We're going to strive to be a bit more like the trains in countries like Germany or China or elsewhere that are actually on time, and strive not to be like some of the trains in other countries that are less likely to be on time. We won't name those countries. But we're going to try to be precise with our time and keep moving. We have a very, very busy day. These recordings will be kept on this platform for 30 days. So you can access them anytime, one at a time, over the next 30 days. After that, they will be posted for free on YouTube, on the soQuiet.org page, as well as our Duke Center for Misophonia page. Everything is free here for you all, so no worries about having to pay anything to access anything. If you're interested in supporting scientific research, there are lots of ways to do that. Our work at the Duke Center for Misophonia and Emotion Regulation is almost entirely funded by generosity from philanthropic donors. If this is something you'd like to support, you can contact me directly at my email listed here. Go to Instagram at Duke Center for Misophonia, or give directly on our website. And of course, there's lots of ways to give if you'd like to support researchers who are presenting exciting research today. Please do reach out to them directly. The science of misophonia, I will say very directly, is only advancing because of generosity of people who can give. There are no government studies, at least in the United States, of misophonia. There's no large-scale funding yet. So we really do rely on philanthropy to support everything that we're doing. This includes advocacy for misophonia and support-based advocacy. And if you're interested in supporting the support and advocacy of misophonia, please consider giving directly online at www.soquiet.org, or if you prefer, to any of the nonprofit partner organizations listed on the event platform who contributed to today's planning. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Cris Edwards, who is going to continue with more welcoming remarks.
Thanks, Zach. I do want to mention, if you're looking for the consensus definition, you'll find a link to it under the Resource Center at the top of your screen. There's a link to it if you want to read that. Very interesting. All right, let me share my screen real quick. I'm just going to go over a couple of things real quick. By the way, I am Cris Edwards. I'm the founder of soQuiet, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to misophonia advocacy. I want to orient you to the platform that you're on today a little bit. So this is Canopy. Some of you have already figured this out, but you can have all of the session times in your local time zone if you click on the little clock in the upper right corner of your screen up there. And that way the times for the sessions will be in your own time zone. Makes it a lot easier so you don't have to convert it. I know I had a problem with that. Also, translation, all of the content you see here, including the menus and the transcription, can be translated. All you have to do is click on the button next to the clock that looks like a little, like a kanji symbol and letter A. If you want the transcription translated, the translation button for that is at the bottom of the transcription on the left-hand side of your screen. So you can get it in different languages, up to 52 different languages, which is pretty handy. The transcription is largely provided in case there's any triggering sounds. All of the speakers here today are going to do their best not to make triggering sounds, but there's so many possibilities of what those could be, and this is a live event that we can't guarantee that that won't happen. So if you're being triggered by anything that anybody is doing, feel free to put the whole thing on mute. Just hit your mute button on your computer, and you can read the transcription over here on your left, and keep up with what we're talking about. As Zach mentioned, the recordings for this, the unedited recordings, will be available on this platform that you're on right now through the next month after this event. And then after that, they will be in perpetuity on YouTube and other presenting organizations. So the Duke site, our site, you'll be able to view them freely there. As far as communicating, Like I said, we're going to do our best not to do any triggering sounds. They inevitably might happen. If there's something that's particularly troublesome, you can jump into the Q&A. Right now, there's a lot of people who are signed up for this, and so Q&A is going to be through the Q&A chat on the right side of your screen. Instead of having people come on the microphone, we're just going to pick a few questions that people submit through Q&A during each session as time allows. And so that's kind of an orientation of this platform. There's a lot to it, I know. Thank you for your patience on getting logged in and everything. And I wanted to just take a quick minute. I've got about 1 minute to talk and take off my organizational hat and say, I've had misophonia. I'm 48. I've had misophonia for as long as I can remember, before there was even a word for it. And when I look back, even 5 years ago at the state of misophonia awareness and research and knowledge, where we are at today is sort of mind-blowing to me. And so I wanted to speak directly to the people who have misophonia, that we understand that the wheels of science sometimes turn slowly and it can be hard to be patient with that. But the research has picked up incredibly. There's a lot of neat things that will happen in the forthcoming 5 years. And so I understand how hard it is to get through each day. Some days are really frustrating, some days are really hard, and some are better than others. But all of the people who are presenting today are volunteering. This entire event was put together by volunteers. So all the presenters, the people you see on your screen now, all the backstage people who've put it together, and our partners have all volunteered their time, because we're all here to support you as people who struggle with misophonia. And as somebody who has it myself, that is kind of mind-blowing and very reassuring and validating. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Brout, if you want to wrap it up.
Yes. Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Brout, International Misophonia Research Network. And since we're being open here, I also have misophonia and raised a now adult daughter with misophonia. And that's where my journey with misophonia began. I'm just going to go over the format a little bit very quickly. Each presenter, each researcher will come on and they'll present their work. And then following that, we'll have a Q&A session. Of course, the sessions aren't going to be as long as we want, but we will try to get to as many questions as we can. We also have, at the end of the 3 sessions this morning, we also have a panel Q&A. And that should be helpful as well to get your questions answered. Also, I want to encourage you, if you look in the top yellow stripe, you'll see a resource center, and there's so much information there that, thank you to Cris put up and Michelle, and please do use that. It will link to every paper presented. It will link to organizations. You can also look under speakers. So when I introduce the speakers, or the other moderators introduce the speakers, we're going to be very brief. But if you want to know more about anybody, just look under speakers. And I think we have a little time for anything else. That we have a couple more minutes.
3 minutes. We're running early today. The train is early.
Let me let you use that time. If anyone, I see a couple of technical questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some people are having a little difficulty.
Yeah.
Oh, people don't know that they're muted. Okay.
Yeah.
So just so everybody knows, you are all muted, not to offend you, but because obviously we're expecting a very large attendance. And so obviously we can't have your sound on, or else it will be a disaster. So your sound is off, which is why we want you to use the chat. I should have said that before as well. So if you're going to ask a question, just ask it in the Q&A chat. And you can ask questions while somebody's presenting, and I will try to track them. But for the most part, if you could hold to the end, that would be helpful. Somebody says I can hear but not able to turn on my mic. Okay, you can't turn on your mic just because we have all sound off except for ours. And I think that's it.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
got about 1 minute. Andrea, thanks for the question. That will actually be a relevant question in some of the upcoming sessions. I definitely hope you can submit it to some of the researchers. We've got about 1 minute, so we can go ahead and end this and we can make our way over to Dr. Gregory's session. Thank you all for being here. We're excited about this day, and we're all excited to hear from top researchers in the world.